Well, hello there. Tal here. First time I'm live here on Instagram. So I wanted very much to talk to you about the solution that we need to find to the pandemic and to all of the different crises that we're experiencing right now. I'll just tell you in a few words about myself. I am a social psychologist, and for the past 12 years or so, maybe even more, I've been studying spirituality, mostly Kabbalah, and really delving into the deeper reasons and the higher level solutions to suffering and to fulfilling our potential as human beings. And as we go through this pandemic that is not relenting and the social crisis right now in America and all of this pressure that is adding up, I feel that it's really very, very important that we raise our awareness and understand why this is happening and what we can really do to be part of the solution. Are we going to be part of the solution if we just find ourselves arguing over opinions or arguing whether the pandemic is real or not? Is it a conspiracy theory? I see we're all getting into this kind of conflict right now with each other. And what's really going to help us right now is to understand the higher level of where this is coming from, of why this is happening. So if you look at psychological models, even like spiral dynamics by psychologists Beck and Cohen, and it's actually based on work from Clare Graves, who started his research in the 1950s. And he would ask his students about their values and about things that were important to them. And he asked thousands of people over 20 years of research. And what he saw was that there were patterns that were repeating themselves in people's level of consciousness, he called it. It's the psychological and cultural patterns that people had in their lives. And he built a model that he also based his information on Weber and Maslow and all those models of human desire and evolution. And he built an amazing model, which later Don Beck created, like with color schemes. He made a model with color scheme called Spiral Dynamics, and I encourage you to learn about it. It's got a lot to it. I'll try to summarize it in a few points, because what it really shows is that human consciousness is evolving, constantly changing. And so if 100,000 years ago people were at a level of consciousness of very animalistic desires, trying to survive, very, very primitive, and then 50,000 years ago they already built tribes where they started collaborating because they understood that reality was changing and they wanted to adapt themselves. They saw that the problems they had on that level they could not solve with their current level of consciousness, so a new order or a new form or a new level appears. And then after those tribes 50,000 years ago and 10,000 years ago, a new level of unbridled egoism, of power, a lust for power appeared in humanity, and that's where you see all kinds of empires that are trying to rule others, and feudalism and slavery and all that kind of thing, where it was kind of like a jungle where the strong survives. And this came as a kind of opposition to the previous tribal model that was a lot more collectivist and cooperative. And each level that the psychologist found comes next is like the opposite of the one that came before and on a higher level. So then 5,000 years ago, after that unbridled longing for power, there came a new level. It was blue in the model, and this is the level of religion, organized religion and idealism, and the nation states later, where people were seeking structure. They didn't want the unsafety of living in a jungle, right? A world where anybody can do whatever they want. They wanted structure, and this is the level of having a role, being part of an idea, and in a way it was again sacrificing the self for the sake of something bigger than you. And then in Europe at that time there were plagues, there were all kinds of things that kind of broke people's faith in religion. They saw that they weren't getting the answers from religion, And this new desire evolved within human beings, again, with the individual desire for knowledge. And then there was enlightenment and the scientific revolution and the industrial revolution. And this was the orange level of capitalism, capitalistic democracies, which of course we see very much in our days. And this is a level of entrepreneurs wanting to make an impact, wanting to create change, where we don't depend on religion or some external God, but we want to create change ourselves with our power. And then the final level that evolved from, on this tier, they had two tiers. This is the subsistence tier. I'm going to talk to you about that in a second. But the next level that evolved is the green level. And this is already the level that talks about equality and social democracy, right? All that capitalism, destroying the planet and excavating all the resources and leaving nature barren, and also manipulating other people for material gain. The kind of response to that was a new level of consciousness that felt that that wasn't right, that we needed to come together. And there you saw like the hippies in the 60s and human rights movements calling out for legislations to take care of the weaker parts of society. And again, inequality, collaboration, and that sort of thing. And you see that part very strong in our society today as well. You see even a conflict between people who are green on that level of consciousness and people who are like on the capitalistic or materialistic level and the blue level of order and having everything very organized and the roles of and religion and all that thing. So you've got a conflict between different levels of consciousness. And why is that happening? That's the interesting thing about this model, that it explains that on each of these levels, human beings are not self-aware. They're not aware of being in a process of evolution. They just think the way they think, and they feel that their opinions are the right opinions. And of course, they're opposite to the levels that came before them or after them. So they're in conflict with each other, and they're fighting each other over who's right and who needs to control everybody else, and how everybody else needs to do what they think is the right way. And that is why we're seeing all this conflict. Of course, the more basic reason for the conflict is human egoism. And this is also something that appears in these models, where they say that these 6 levels that I described, from the very primitive 100,000 years ago to the green level that appeared 150 years ago, they are all called levels of subsistence. Levels where human beings are still very much within their self, personal levels. Now we're coming to an amazing point in time where this model says we're about to take a very, very substantial leap into a whole other level or tier, which is a transpersonal tier. It is no longer focused in the personal or self, but it becomes something global, transpersonal. And like I said, every transition happens to help human beings solve the problems on their current level that they cannot solve with their current level of consciousness. So the higher tier, this evolution, that this leap that wants to take place right now, is what we need in order to solve the problems in our very global, interconnected, interdependent state. We can't stay on a level of consciousness that is separate, that is within the self. And we can't continue to fight each other, because in truth, all these different levels, all these different opinions, all these different people are part of this whole. And unless we learn how to collaborate correctly, how to come into connection with each other, we won't be able to adapt to our global reality. We're totally interconnected on the outside, but we're opposite to that on the inside. And that is where this crisis stems from. You know, what's been happening in the past few months with coronavirus and all this change that is happening, this is really crazy, because nature, it's like it's saying, hey guys, you're out of time. You're not evolving fast enough. So nature itself is pressuring us to move forward. And it's like it's educating us. It's showing us what we need to do. It's telling us, hey guys, you can't just continue to strive for success and just like destroy the planet while you're at it. You can't continue to have no consideration for anybody else and just go about your business. And it's creating all of this tension so that we stop everything we're doing, right? It's getting us to isolate ourselves, to disconnect from everybody else, so that we can finally learn how to connect correctly to one another. And we need to achieve this higher level of consciousness that in the psychological models they refer to as the yellow level, and then there is a turquoise level. And these levels of consciousness, they already talk about an integral, systemic point of view where you feel as an individual that you are very much part of the body of humanity, and the self and the other are not in conflict because we are part of a whole. And it's okay for us to be different because we complete each other from this perspective. So psychology doesn't really know how to help us into these higher levels, but you can see that nature itself is helping us. It's showing us the way. It's showing us that we are interdependent, that we have to have consideration for others. We cannot just go about and infect everybody. We have to put on that mask, not because we're afraid of being infected or because we think that it's important, because in this way we show that we care, that we are responsible for others. If we can bring ourselves to take these measures, not as physical measures, but because we want to create a change in attitude in our societies, where we begin to feel that we are one human society that is facing a challenge together. And we do what we do because we want to be accountable for one another. If we can make this transition, you will see that the pressure will cease, that coronavirus will disappear, because that is its purpose. Its purpose is to push us into this new level of being a transpersonal consciousness, where we go beyond ourselves and experience the oneness and connectedness of humanity in all things. So I know humanity is investing billions of dollars in trying to find a vaccine or some sort of solution for coronavirus, but we have to understand it's not going to help, because nature is going to send us a new virus or other natural disasters, God forbid, that will make us feel, as it's making us feel already, that we are so small, right, in the face of nature. Nature is such a complex, all-powerful system of which we are only part. So the sooner that we can understand that and really want to learn what it is that nature wants of us, the sooner that we will find our way and begin to move more smoothly with this process of evolution. And also, another last point I want to make, that the psychologists say this as well. Right now is the first point in all of our history that we are able to become conscious of the process itself. We are able to understand that we need to change. If up until now change happened unconsciously, we were just pushed from one level to the other, we're now in a very amazing time that we can actually begin to change consciously and willingly. So I've been posting a little bit about these models, and I hope that it's kind of intriguing you to look for the solutions for all of our problems on a higher level of thinking, because I know that that is what's really necessary. And the more that we can do that together and shift our thinking, shift our perspectives together, the faster and easier it will all become. We will save ourselves so much trouble, so much money, and so much pain. So I hope we can make this conscious evolution happen together. Okay guys, so that was it for now, and I'd really love it if you comment, if you have any thoughts about this. I'll be really happy to hear. So bye for now.